What was the process like for you? You know, in the sense of you start really trying to, well, it's a discovery into your relationship with your father. What do you think you came out at the other end of this process and the film? And yeah, I don't want to use the word what did you learn because that's too small a way to talk about it, but can you just share what that journey was like to you?
Yeah, so I think, when you look at the different stages, I mean, one was when I was making the film itself. I think I was too close to everything that's happening. I mean, it's unfolding. Actually, the audience discovers the story very much like I did. I mean, in that sense, I learned that the camera catches a light. So, you can't actually stage a documentary. So, the fact that I didn't know about Shah Rukh, I was really tracing the colonial story of India defeating the colonial master. But on the sets, the story of Shah Rukh having saved Keshav's life unfolded, and for me, the focus completely shifted at that point. So the Olympic gold became the backdrop. And actually, I was in Lahore last night, last morning. I've actually come back from Lahore just last night. So I was fortunate to make something that was said of Lahore. It was said that you could have breakfast in Lahore and lunch in Amritsar. And I actually had breakfast in Lahore, lunch in Amritsar, and dinner in Bangalore. So, at a level, my heart is laden with the possibility, even now, that we can do it. And at the same time, I'm filled with sadness at what happened to us at the time of partition. Such a cruel joke that we have been separated from each other. And believe me, this is the second time, so at least the first time emotionally it was so strong to go back to a place that my family had come from and to work on and to realize that the relationship that I have with Lahore and the other side of Punjab need not be what a lot of us are socialized into having currently. So this time, when I went, there were so many people who were walking up to me because they had seen the film or they'd heard of it, and they were sharing their stories. And believe me, their stories of pain and separation are identical to ours. So many of them would just want to hug me because I've come from Amritsar, or I have been to Jalandhar, or because their grandfather or grandmother or whoever's come from there. And at least the people who met me, not even one incident of someone meeting me with something that was less than love, So, the sadness is that if we can be two separate nations, but why does it have to be so much animosity? So this is one aspect of a process I'm still going through. So I'm still trying to make sense of what the last 6 days were. And the other is that I really think I didn't have the full picture about my parents till I did the film. And it's not as if they felt I had to know or needed to know. It's just something that would have remained missing. Our lives would have gone on. And our relationship would have been what it was. It seemed quite full. But definitely after doing this film and understanding what they had been through, what they had given up without speaking about, that was, so my understanding of them. And also, something that I was I was fortunate I worked on it for 7 years. So, you're able to work out your thoughts. And then to realize that this fine line between the Watan and the nation, Watan means homeland, it's a very fine, it's not, I don't know, is it a fine line, is it not, what is it a line? But this home that is in our imagination, that truly doesn't have, a map-like boundary. And is it fair that we break it up for people? We push very difficult choices choices that they make in the spur of the moment, and then you reap the results of this, not only your life, but the generations that come after. So it's all this. That's.
So you, in the film, you say that, this is the first time you're making a film.
Yeah.
And believe me, and I think the audience will agree, it didn't look like you're a first time filmmaker. It's very, very accomplished. And I think, can you share about that? Like, what was your, because you're in the film and you are filming as well.
Yeah.
And film is very much. So I think when one makes films on one's families, particularly, there's a kind of vulnerability that is also exposed to the audience, and that's. So not only shooting, but I think in the editing there are some tough choices as to what you're going to keep, what you're going to leave out, and how you're going to protect the people in the film. Can you talk a bit about that? And sometimes also in families, there are also conflicts about, I don't want this, why are you shooting X, or leave that out, or could you show, can you just talk about that a bit?
Yeah, so, I think, I started this journey or the conversation with my father thinking I'll write a little article. I had not thought I would make a film. But the minute we went to the college memories, which also happened quite by chance, I can't get into, those longer stories. But the minute we went into college memories and what started getting revealed was the story of friendship. I had worked on a museum project before and I studied design. I knew the relevance of this story for our history, and I just put a camera on a tripod and started recording everything after that, thinking that I was doing research for the real film. And I had imagined that another crew would come and maybe reshoot some of this. But I hadn't realized that it was the last year of my father's life. So I was, very soon left with nothing but what I had got. And at that point, I had actually gone to Sushma. And Sushma is a friend of ours. I'd asked her if she could edit it, and I had asked her that, is this footage strong enough? Because it is amateur after all, because most of it was done by me. But I did have a crew that went with me to Calcutta and to meet Bani Singh, because I know they are iconic players. So for an oral history project to have their testimonies is very important. So, that's how actually the film, and Sushma reassured me. I was very concerned that, one, the footage should be good, and if it's not possible to make a really good film with it, I wanted to make a home documentary, But also I wanted to know if my father was compromised, because he had trusted me. And she said, no, he's not. So once she reassured me about these two things, I said, okay, let's go ahead. But, I could share with you what is my wish after this film is done, that this film really did start out as a home video kind of thing. All of us have cameras in our phones, which are very powerful. And the film, did a kind of crossover from that sort of space into a space where it did compete, and didn't compete, but it was sharing the platform in DIF, which is Dharamshala International Film Festival, with a Cannes awardee, film that had been nominated to the Oscars, and another Cannes awardee. So I'm telling you, it's the power of the story. And I think all of us have very powerful stories in our family. And I think there's oral history that is waiting to be documented. And it must be documented because it can change the way the larger narrative is seen. And we have to own our stories, because otherwise your stories are going to be taken away and possibly weaponized. I know that some of the stories about the partition have been. So it's very important, and you must do that. And so this is what I say to the students when I meet them, because we have to create a different sort of pool of information from which narratives can be told.
I had tears in my eyes too. I feel it was also, there were so many layers. the you know the hockey and partition, and also there was another layer of age.
Yeah.
At an age, you're also thinking back when we were young, and the memory is also belonging, wanting to go back to the
Yeah, what
feeling
was.
when
Yeah.
we were young. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And as a first-time filmmaker, hope you can share more about how you.
Yeah.
When I started watching it, I also thought it was going to go ahead with how India was prosperous with the gold and like how they won. But as the movie took a sudden turn towards finding Mr. Shah Rukh, it almost became, the editing was done so beautifully that it almost started wanting us also to figure out if you would ever get to meet him, or like would it ever happen, or to even hear the fact that maybe he's not there anymore or whatever. And the payoff was done very well, and that we ourselves were embedded in the story. What was your feeling when you finally got to see him in person and talk to him?
Yeah, because I had grown up hearing stories of the partition, and it, even as a child, made me very sad, and also helpless that something so awful happened, and there's nothing one can do about it, So, and of course, the fact is that something traumatic had happened, there was silence about it, we couldn't talk about it, but when they spoke about it, it was with love. And it was almost fairy tale. There was nothing that could ever match their Lahore or Pindi or whatever. So I didn't want this to be a film about people narrating what had happened to them in the past. I wanted to be able to speak with the past. So the daughter actually represents the contemporary time and a journey back into the past in some way. And so the fact that I could meet Shah Rukh, that he was alive, fortunately, he was the last man alive from that Pakistan team, I mean, almost felt as if he stayed alive to be able to have this conversation and to leave a record of how much love there was before all this. So it was, and I think the biggest learning I've had at a personal level is that, of course, it's very important to understand the past, and the past keeps revealing itself in many different ways. But believe me, if you can change your relationship to the way you understand the past, very different doors to the future open to you. And this is something I've learned personally through this journey.
Thank you for the film. A couple of observations, no questions, too choked to ask questions, just reflections. As a South Indian, we've read about the partition, and it's a historical event, and the pain and the anger and everything else, that tumult, all that one has only known it from reading very remotely. Even in Delhi, I worked for 6 years, I had no friend who had experienced this. So to be able to go through this through the eyes of a person who's actually had a member in the family and with some recognition nationally from sports, and then your attempt to sort of go back to find out his friendships, and amazing. So also we have so much about women's sorority and affect, the Saheli Pan is well established, it's real. There is an emotional honesty and freedom with women. We don't see that with men. And images of North India and, Machogiri and all of that, it sort of changed so many things, and the kind of things they could remember as young friends, very inspiring, even with a number of years left for me. I still feel hopeful that, relationships can be, real and enduring, and lots of messages your film has sort of conveyed, Thank you. And it's first direct experience of the partition through a person who's lived through it and a member of their family, a loving daughter. Thank you very much for that experience. I'll never forget this.
My question was that in the documentary, you dealt with the age group of such people who are like a bit sensitive and who get emotionally very quickly. So, and you had a member like your own grandfather. So how?
My father.
Sorry,
My
your father.
father.
I'm so sorry. Your father. So, like, how did you deal with your own emotions, and then at the same time you were recording also, and people just telling their own brutal history and whatever the suffering they went through. So, like, how could you just bring a balance of both?
I don't have the problem of looking at the past with emotions. I feel actually, reading something and saying that you remove emotions from it makes it kind of dead. So I wasn't self-conscious of that, to be honest. Of course, my father's reaction when I came back from Lahore, I was still setting up the camera. I had not expected the reaction that I got. I didn't realize that there was so much pain that was, it came up and it impacted me. If you notice, the camera starts shaking because when he started crying, it completely affected me, and I also got quite teary-eyed. So I went through the emotions with them. There wasn't that much distance. But I mean, while you're editing, you can always take a step back and look at how much you want to use it. You don't use every bit of emotion that you capture. So that's a process, because then you become clearer about the story you want to tell, and you keep what you want, what helps it, and you don't keep what doesn't. So that was it, I think, to answer it. Does it
And
answer?
I know one more question,
Yeah.
that any suggestion you would give for the budding filmmakers, like, and especially those who are covering such a sensitive topic or historic moments. So for them, anything we should keep in mind?
So they say about dance, you dance like nobody's watching you. So you make a film like only you're going to watch it. You just do it. You do it as honestly and as with a jumping spirit. And you don't have to, that's what worked for me. I started it in a very unself-conscious way. And then later, actually, when you share it with others, it's very personal, but it touches you at a personal level, and it's never an issue. So my advice is just that.
So there was a lot of anxiety built up because of the suspense that was there in the film, that will your dad and Mr. Shah Rukh meet or not. So like after you like made the film, did it happen that they met virtually or something?
Yeah. I could arrange a Zoom or a Skype meeting between Keshav, my father, and Shah Rukh.
Yeah.
And all three of them said no.
Why so?
They had their memories. They
So-
didn't want to, it's like Shah Rukh was remembered by my father and Keshav as the strapping youth you saw.
Yeah, okay.
They didn't want to meet a really old person anymore. My father was quite ill. Shah Rukh was quite ill. So I remember one of them said to me, in Punjabi, "Oh, sun nahi sakda, main bol nahi sakda." So why would we meet now?
Okay, makes sense. Thank
So
you.
it's like, that's when you also realize that there is a line after which their memories were sacrosanct.
Oh, okay.
And I think it took a very Olympian spirit to walk away from that. And I totally respected it.